Hello, and welcome to season one of the podcast Bernie's Dad Personal Reflections. I'm your host, Eric Landrum from Psych Sessions and Boise State University. This podcast lives at an unexpected but hopefully rich intersection. My 35 plus years as a psychology educator and my life with a new puppy named Bernie Sanders. Bernie is part Shih Tzu, part poodle, and, like many of the best teachers and students in psychology, mostly joy with a little bit of mischief mixed in. As I reflect on my career and get to know this energetic little guy, I've started to notice meaningful parallels between the two. Teaching, mentoring, learning, patience, growth. These themes show up whether you're in a classroom or on a walk with your puppy. Each episode of Bernie's Dad is short and reflective, built around a single idea. Episode titles are one word, often inspired by terms from the adjective checklist, and serve as a lens for exploring both professional life and personal experience. While this is primarily a solo podcast, I may invite guests from time to time when it feels right. My hope is that these episodes are small, satisfying nuggets, something you can savor, reflect on, and perhaps carry with you into your own work and life. I also suspect you'll recognize segments of your own career in many of the topics we explore together. My thanks to Psych Sessions for supporting this project. And now, on with the show. Hi, this is Eric, and this is episode 4, titled Emotional. Again, this little mini podcast is all about the parallels I see from my personal and professional life and the new experiences I'm having with our new puppy, Bernie Sanders. I Over the course of my career, whether it's the career part or just the living life part, I know I can sense that I've become more emotional over time. And I think there's a couple of drivers of that. If you want to get technical, I think there's a couple of sources of variance for that. You know, I'm just more appreciative of kindness. Just basic everyday kindness. This could be kindness from my students appreciating something that I've done. This could be from my faculty members. This could be an interaction during a faculty meeting. It could be working on a committee on campus or whatever. I find myself in my life being more in tune with my emotions and just more emotional. And just to be blunt about it, crying more, tearing up more often. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I mean, I can be watching TV, I can be watching a Netflix series, I can be watching a commercial, I could be watching a YouTube video or a TikTok video and just tear up because there's an expression of kindness. There's a real emotion being displayed, which gets to me and makes me tear up. And so when I see that in myself right now, in this point in my career, but I see it with Bernie Sanders all the time. And just for new listeners, Bernie Sanders is my puppy that I'm referring to, not the congressperson, not the senator. Um, I, know, maybe I'm not sure I should admit this or not, but I have conversations with Bernie, and Bernie sometimes talks back in his own way, but he's a very good listener. And so I will sometimes share really super emotional stuff with him. And I can think of specific instances where I've been talking to Bernie and I've teared up because I'm telling him something to me that's meaningful. And it's hard to know what dogs really process, but everything I've read tells me that dogs process tone. They don't understand the words, obviously, for the most part, but they understand tone. They understand volume of voice. They understand intonation, things like that. And so there's just this beautiful purity in his eyes when I'm talking to him. And he's actually looking at me and making eye contact, which is really pretty cool. And so I've just noticed this over time, the parallels between the emotions that I'm feeling here, late career, later in life, and the emotions I experience with my puppy. And I think it's lovely and it's beautiful. I'm going to tell myself it's normal, just because I'm crying more often at this point in my life. I'm okay with that. And most of the people around me are too. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you. Um, And by the way, I do see that there are connections between emotional, what I've just described as emotional and appreciative. Appreciation will be another episode in a separate episode in this series. Anyway, as always, thanks for listening. Inspired by teaching, guided by Bernie. Keep learning, keep growing, and take care. I'll see you next time.